bright, blessed day, the dog said,
Hey, me, check, 1, 2.
And the news now introduction across this great land, Dr. Ron Paul. Ron Paul Revolution.
Ron Paul Revolution!
Ron Paul Revolution.
Ron Paul Revolution!
Ron Paul Revolution.
Ron Paul Revolution!
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that nice reception. Thank you for the introduction and all the individuals that worked so hard to put this together. Now, you can't quite see my wife, but my wife Carol's with me today. She's holding some roses. We have one granddaughter. We have 18 grandchildren, and we have one granddaughter. I'm not going to tell you what university she goes to, but our oldest grandson graduated from OU, so I don't know how he ended up out here. All his relatives that had graduated from a few of those technical schools kept talking to him and talking to him. No, OU. But anyway, it's really great to be here today. And it's great to be involved in something that's very important to you and obviously very important to me. And that is the cause of liberty. You know, the other night in the debate, they asked us to use one word, and I was so tempted because that's really the one word that is the best. The word is liberty. That's what made the country great, and that's what we're losing, and that's why we're not so great anymore, and that's why there's a revolution going on. But I'm sure glad the revolution has arrived in Oklahoma because it is spreading. It's an intellectual revolution, and it's not going to be stopped. And you know, an idea whose time has come, it cannot be stopped by armies or any government. So we're really on a roll now as far as presenting our case and actually doing very well in the effort to accumulate delegates. You know the name of it? You know, sometimes they get confused on the voting and counting the votes, but so far right now they're admitting that we are in second place with delegate count. And there's a lot more counting to do, so the effort is going to continue, and it's so important. But this has been going on for a long time. I've been talking about our problems for a good while. Matter of fact, when I got involved in politics in the 1970s, I was trying to head off some of these problems. But lo and behold, the government continued to grow. If you looked at the size of government, and since I've been involved, you'd have to say I didn't do a very good job because the government keeps growing. But where we're making inroads is with you. And I tell the people wherever I go that the people are waking up, but Washington is still sound asleep, so we better let them hear our message. Our country was started on a good note, never perfect. We had a great constitution. It had its shortcomings. They gave us a republic, but quite frankly, I do not believe we live in a republic anymore. And what we have, though, is we have the tradition of the rule of law and the tradition of the republic, and we have the enthusiasm for it, but we have a long way to go to restore the republic. And that means that we have to deal with the many problems that have come about for a very precise reason. I claim that most of the reason, if not all the reason, why we're in this political and economic mess is we have sent too many or have allowed too many to go to Washington who either didn't read or didn't understand and didn't take their oath of office seriously like they should. But at least about 100 years ago, things changed rather drastically. The seeds were planted for the inevitable growth of big government, and that was, things like the 16th Amendment was a very bad move. Yes. And of course, we should repeal the 16th Amendment because we have a natural, God-given right to our lives and our liberties, and we ought to have the right to keep the fruits of our labors. Jefferson lost the argument that the federal government should be able to borrow money. He believed they shouldn't even be permitted to borrow money. So he lost that argument. They started borrowing money, but not till the 20th century did they borrow money wholesale. But then, of course, then with the income tax, they started, taxing us wholesale. But there was always a limit to that, because there is a point of no return. The more you tax, the less revenues, and the angrier the people become. So we had the taxes that were limited, and this borrowing was limited, because if you continued to borrow, the interest rates would go up. So of course, in that same year, they gave us the IRS and the federal and the income tax. They gave us that very onerous thing called the Federal Reserve that we need to abolish. That was a guarantee that they would not end the Fed, but the Fed, would end the value of the dollar. And now, since the Fed has been in existence for 99 years, they've lost about 99% of the dollar's value from 1913. So in the next year is going to be an anniversary of sorts, the 100th year for the Federal Reserve. So we should celebrate by passing the bill that repeals the Federal Reserve Act. But with the introduction of the Federal Reserve, which is something that nations have done and dictators have done for thousands of years, debase the currency. The governments always want control of the money because they can debase the currency. At one time it was just clipping coins, another time diluting the metal, and another time it started printing money. Today it's very sophisticated. They just use a computer, literally creating trillions of dollars without hardly any effort. And the Federal Reserve actually churned $15 trillion during the bailout. And they do it without adequate supervision by the Congress, like the Congress totally ignores them. And that is why, short of getting rid of the Federal Reserve, we absolutely have to get a full audit of the Federal Reserve. What they're doing. But history shows that once governments have the power to create money, they do. And what does that mean? That means the government grows. And when the government grows, your liberties are undermined. And that means personal liberties are undermined, economic liberties are undermined. And nations that grow like that end up doing way too much overseas. They feel like they have this obligation, authority, and the power to police the world. And so when we have our revolution and we come to about, you'll know it's here when our troops come home. The other night I argued that they weren't listening to my moral and my constitutional arguments for not starting another war and bringing the troops home. But there's an economic argument that they must listen to because it's a powerful argument. It's great nations who overextend themselves overseas inevitably go bankrupt, and we're in the middle of the declaration of our bankruptcy now, and that is why there's such turmoils around the world, because we have been issuing the universal currency, the reserve currency of the world. So we have to face up to that. You know, I just saw a statistic just recently that showed that the amount of debt per individual in this country is greater than the amount of debt per individual in Greece. So that tells you how serious it is, but there's still a bit of trust in the dollars. We still print the money, they still take it overseas, and there's a lot of monetary mischief, and the central banks collude, and everybody has a stake in it, because those who hold our dollars, even the Chinese, they're holding trillions of dollars, they have a stake at it, because if there's a run on the dollar, they all suffer. But the market is more powerful than all governments. That is why the Bretton Woods, which was predicted to break down in 1971, did. That was the end of the gold standard, because they didn't obey the rules of the gold standard. They kept printing the money. So the money supply grew and grew. They attacked the dollar, and finally that system broke apart. Of course, that was the year I got interested in politics, because I thought that would definitely usher in an age, a bigger age of big government, and this is what we've had for 40 years. So For 40 years, we've had a dollar bubble, a bond bubble, living beyond our means, a government that has not stopped growing, overextending ourselves overseas, and obviously attacking our civil liberties at home, at the same time undermining the productive capacity of this country. We are not a productive nation. We're living on borrowed money. We still have apparent wealth around the country, but it doesn't match up to the debt that we've accumulated. So if the Keynesian liberal economists are right, they believe that all you have to do is spend money, don't save money, spend money, borrow money, and print money, and you'll get yourself out of a recession or depression. So it's obvious that it doesn't work, and there is a great test going on right now between those of us who believe in sound money and free markets and individual liberty, minding our own business, a sensible foreign policy, and those who believe we're supposed to be the policemen of the world and deficits don't matter and the welfare state will last forever. I believe we can win this argument, and we'll win it soon. Wherever I go, the crowds come out, and the people in this country know exactly what's going on. And in Washington, they put you down, and they think that they have to take care of you from cradle to grave, and all they're doing is giving you debt and a burden. I'll tell you where they're not waking up. In Washington, they're still sound asleep. They don't hear from us yet, but that is our job, to hear from us and let them get the message what we need in this country, and that's more liberty. You know, one thing that inevitably occurs as government grows, you can't grow government. The government assumes this responsibility to improve our behavior. If they think the government can protect us from against ourselves, it inevitably leads to a dictatorship and control of everything we do. Generally in this country, we accept the notion that our government's not supposed to interfere with our religious value. You know, arguing the case for our hereafter and our eternity is pretty precious for a lot of people, but the government's supposed to stay out of it. The government's supposed to stay out of the business of telling us what books to read. But why is it that we have been so complacent for 100 years, accepting the notion that the government can tell us every single thing that we can do with our own bodies? And that is what we have to reject. Now, the message of liberty is a wonderful message, and I'm always shocked over the many years that I've talked about this, how poorly we win the intellectual argument. We're doing better now, but for a long time, the other side who said that the government is obligated to take care of everybody. Anybody who needs anything has a right to it. So therefore, if they need something, want something, or demand something, and they have a coalition of 51%, they can take it from the 49% and get what they want. But see, that is coming to an end. And there's no reason in the world that our message can't prevail, because not only do we argue for the case for personal liberty, but if you have any humanitarian instincts and you care about the things the other side claims they care about, because they think that if you need a house, give them a free house. If they need food, give them food stamps. They need an education, give them free education. They need medical care, give them free education, because they're the humanitarians. But what does it end up like? It ends up like the housing bubble. Sure, they passed out a lot of houses to people who couldn't afford them. They lost their jobs and they lost the houses, and somebody else made bundles of money off the deal. Not only did they make money when the bubble was forming, when the bubble burst, they of course got the bailout. The American people got the bad debt. They lost a job. The middle class is now shrinking. So there's no reason why we can't win this argument now that the failure of government programs and government involvement overseas and policing the world, it is so apparent that it is failing, that if they truly care about their fellow man, the one thing is, there's absolute concrete evidence that the freer a society is, the wealthier the society is. The one thing, too, that is so wonderful about the message is it brings people together. And because we've chopped freedom into bits and pieces, some will defend half of the economic issues,